So I heard a little bit of history, and I learned about something called the Battle of Pelusium or something.
Okay.
And so apparently it was the Egyptians versus the Persians, and the Persians tied cats to their shields because cats were gods to the Egyptians and they couldn't attack them.
Yeah, hey, before we get going, Mason, what are you wearing over there, buddy?
Well,
what do you got?
I got I'm wearing a shirt.
It's
As
close.
I want to do.
What's it say?
So we have brand new shirts that say "I'm telling mom" in a death metal designed logo. And
Who do you think
Clay
came up
and
with
Landen
this
don't
one?
really know, but let me tell you, this design is so good. So we'll probably post it on the Facebook, or you could go check it out. Just go to itmmerch.com, and it's going to be pinned at the top. We have a bunch of different kinds of styles, but they're all in black with a sick white death metal logo that says "I'm telling mom." Even without the podcast reference, just having "I'm telling mom" in death metal print is funny.
It's perfect for
It's
you, for
funny.
your kids, for your grandma. Cop your own today.
And hurry before they all sell out.
We printed 5. Go get them.
Settle down. All right. Welcome to I'm Telling Mom, the podcast about 3 brothers catching up, playing games, and pursuing our dream of becoming the #1 podcast in the world for cutting-edge journalism. So Clace is currently writing a story on futuristic contact lenses that will allow doctors to see through layers of the human body, thus making expensive hospital equipment like x-rays obsolete.
Yeah.
And Mason, you're currently researching for your story on how the music industry is secretly in cahoots with the government in order to better control mass messaging.
Okay.
And
interesting theory.
I'm Landen. I'm about to introduce my own journalistic endeavor into the topic of furries. Welcome to the show, everybody.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
It's a Furry
uncomfortable.
episode. Yes.
I'm worried.
We're all worried. We don't know
Don't be
where
worried.
this is going to go.
Don't be worried. I think we're going to have a good show. But before we kind of jump into some of those topics, I think, Clace, you wanted to bring something up.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so in the pre-intro, Mason learned us some things, right? I also learned some things.
Oh, good.
How much, okay, seriously, how much do you guys know about the medieval jester? Do you actually know anything about a jester's life from medieval times?
They had the best hats.
They did
All
have
right.
some pretty
Impeccable
bomb-ass
hat
hats.
game.
I
Yeah.
learned some fascinating things about the medieval jesters. So first of all, they didn't wear those hats. They actually looked exactly like royalty, and they were considered, by the way, they were super intelligent and considered as a part of like the royal party. They had a ton of things they had to do. Yeah, they had to make people laugh, but also he was the only one that could make fun of the king, right? Everybody else would die. So the king actually wanted somebody to be able to mock him and make fun of him that would be legal. They also had to
The king just
deliver
wanted
bad
to be
news.
roasted, but only by the one guy that was allowed to.
Right. Because that was the only respectful way to
Interesting.
do it. They had to deliver bad news, and they had to do it in a way that was funny. So
Really?
so it would lighten the load.
Your daughter is dead.
Exactly. And this is what blew my mind, and it gave me Monty Python and the Holy Grail flashbacks. They actually were required to make, quote, music by farting. So they would actually, it was back then considered an art. And so, like, it was funny, but it was music at the same time. You remember in Monty Python and the Holy Grail where they, like, bend down and they all put the horns, like, to their butts and they're, like, all trumpeting?
Yeah.
That's
That's what it
based on
was.
That
fact.
actually, yeah, that's actually what they would do.
They would use horns?
Well, I don't know
Don't know
about
what's
horns.
true
I don't know
anymore.
about horns.
I'm hoping that this was an example of the one weird jester from the one
No.
weird kingdom
This was
that
like-
was like, ah.
No, this was like the medieval royal
Standard.
family
I mean, Landon,
standard.
This hat,
Yeah.
farting music had to be on your resume to become a jester.
Maybe.
time.
I don't know.
When
I'm just
I
saying
think-
it was a desired skill.
But like when I think of peak comedy, I don't think of the medieval times, so it's not like
Yeah, they didn't know.
I don't
what was-
hold
they
them
didn't
in.
know.
Yeah, they don't
Dude.
know.
So they also would, in battle, they would go to battle and they would yell as loud as they can obscenities and mean things about the other army. Like as they're lining up, the jester is just standing at the front lines screaming obscenities to them, trying to piss them off and make them like charge out of line. That was their job. That was part of what they
Wow.
did in the like
But then-
royal duties.
But then they literally become the only target in the army. Like that's got to be the most dangerous job because
Like,
everyone wants to
somebody
kill the
shoot
funny
that
little
guy with an
jester.
arrow.
Yeah.
3 a.m, screaming about how dumb our colors are. That's amazing.
Well, there you
Wow.
go. The more you know.
Mason, did you have anything before we get into some furries?
I sure do. So we have a podcast called I'm Telling Mom. I don't know if you're aware. But so now that I have to exclusively listen to mom-based podcasts, I was listening to Your Mom's House with Tom Segura,
Yeah.
and he had a comedian on who doesn't have a sense of smell, and so he was talking about how he like grows up and nobody knows he can't smell. He doesn't even know he can't smell, and he starts to like slowly figure out like, oh, other people have a sense that I don't have. So like, because he just wouldn't shower as a teenager because he didn't smell anything. And then people would start telling him that he smells. And so that was really interesting to listen to. But my thought was, what if the majority of the world couldn't smell? Like that just wasn't a sense that we had. And then a select few
Few people
could smell, so the
The
entire
world would smell
world
so bad.
smells like complete ass, and only a
New
few
York
people
subway.
like
Shit
commit
and
suicide
cum
because they
everywhere.
can't. Like,
Wait a
because
second.
nobody
Why
would care.
Landa, we can't smell. It's not like, are you seriously saying that
I'm-
everybody
I'm
that can't smell is just like you walk in their house and there's just piss and cum everywhere? That's
I
what
mean,
you're
they're not going to be
suggesting?
dirty,
The
but
smell of
That has
I don't know.
nothing.
but like along those lines. It's like, why would you shower if nobody can smell you? Like, there's why. Other than
I
you're
think you
like
probably
once
still
every
would-
couple months.
I don't
to
shower.
clean
I don't
off.
shower. I don't know. I don't shower because I smell bad. I shower
Yeah, but you
every
and-
night because it's like hygienic.
But it started as a teenager showering like every day because you smell. So if that's never instilled in you because it's not a big deal socially, then I don't think we would shower every day.
I think it would still be common to shower, generally accepted to do that, but I think you're right, it would be less frequent.
Yeah, I
because if you
think-
How
can't
does
smell
that
everybody-
affect? How does that affect taste? Because your
Right, that's what I was wondering. Like
nose
that
and your
guy
mouth
on the
are.
Tom Segura thing, did he
Yeah.
talk about not being able to taste things?
He did. That was a big part of it. And
That would
just
suck.
he could
Oh my
he still
gosh.
enjoy, like, specifically he brought up a burger and pizza and stuff like that, and you still enjoy like the sense of taste. And he says that
The
you can appreciate
textures.
more like the textures and stuff, you can appreciate that more. I think he does miss out a little bit on the taste aspect compared to people that can smell.
I feel like there
Right.
would be such high demand of like cookie tasters, and because there's only a select number of people that can actually smell and taste
Yeah.
anything. So you're like, we need people that actually know what tastes good and then market that stuff to the public.
Yeah, but if nobody can
Or-
really taste anything, then why does it matter?
Yeah.
All food
the,
becomes
the
super
select,
bland.
but the select few could. So Landon,
Right.
all right, if the three of
So
us,
they're now being subjected to eat bland food.
if the three of us were the only people in the whole world that could taste or smell anything,
Right.
Then they
And
wouldn't
we
cater
literally-
to us.
no, but we could say this peanut butter and jelly sandwich that only the three of us make tastes good. All the other peanut butter jellies don't taste
but
good.
nobody else would care because they can't taste it.
But I feel like we would be celebrities in the right that like we have a superpower. It would be like if somebody came through and
He
was like,
wants
yeah,
to
we
take
can.
over the world with his taste.
Why
buds.
would we not?
Okay,
If you have
So I don't think people would cater to us with our opinions because most of the world doesn't work that way. I think that since all tastes would be so much more bland, the staple tastes would be like 20 times more garlic than you're supposed to have. Like, they would elevate the strong taste so much that they can actually taste it and it tastes normal to them. Whereas we'd be the freaks that are like, oh my God, it's so much. I just want to drink this water because that's the only thing that I can handle.
And that's evolution.
We just became a very educational podcast with this episode, so I'm enjoying it.
Well, I really want to learn more about furries. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I really...
Clace, you are in for a treat, and so are you, Mason. As opposed to doing research into furries and trying to explain it or have discussions around it, I decided to reach out directly to the furry community on Reddit, actually. And I was able to snag an interview with someone who self-defines as a furry.
That's awesome.
So
whoa,
we are going to spend the next 23-ish minutes watching this interview that I had with Dan. And we will reconvene afterwards to talk about it. So, audio listeners, you're now going to hear this interview. And,
I also, before you play anything, I think we should preface, listener, do whatever you want. The three of us, we have to go into this at an absolutely unbiased opinion. I think there's some negative connotations that, and I'll be honest, sometimes I adopt, that I don't think is healthy in a conversation like this. So it would best behoove you to do the same. You might learn something. So I think we should just approach it from that angle.
You're right. Don't be completely closed off to the idea. Just be open to learning something.
And to further clarify on that, when I initially reached out to the community, I directly messaged everybody within a furry subreddit, and I said, here's what I want to do. I'd like to interview somebody that defines as a furry and would be interested in talking, and in no way am I trying to impose certain judgments upon you. I have questions.
Yeah.
Would you be open to
let's
answering?
find out.
So Dan reached out pretty quickly. He was awesome. So let's take a listen. Dan, if you can introduce yourself to the podcast, to the listeners, tell the people who you are.
My name's Dan. I can't actually say that I've been a furry. Usually I just think that I kind of get people to be like, oh, so you're a furry? I'm just like, yeah, whatever. Like, can we just talk about something else or whatever? I don't know. I don't like to talk about other people. I don't like to say it. I don't even like saying my stupid, character name thing either. So I'm glad we're not going by that. But, yeah, I've been a furry for 4 years, I think, going on now. But I don't have a fursuit. I don't know, you're probably going to have a question about that, and that's probably the first thing people are going to think, but I don't. Most people don't.
Yeah, that actually is going to be one of my questions, just about fursuits specifically. But from my understanding, the furry lifestyle, you contribute in different ways, through art, through music, through the costume itself. I don't know if I should call it a costume. It's
you can. That's what it is.
Gotcha. Well, so yeah, I guess to kick this off, I think I wanted to try to describe to my brothers and to the audience what a furry was, but being somebody that's not within that lifestyle. I think it's better set up if you were to explain to everybody what a furry is.
So I think first thing is you're going a little too hard by calling it a lifestyle. I mean, that's not personally how I would describe it. It's really more of a hobby, I would say. I just say I'm a big baseball fan. I watch a lot of baseball, but it's not my lifestyle. Although I guess you can say it is because I just sit down and watch baseball every day. But it's more just it's something I'm interested in. It's a hobby. It's just something I do. And so what you asked what a furry is?
Yeah.
So I'll say first thing is it's not there's no real criteria you really have to meet. You don't have to go to the CEO of furries and try to get accepted. You just have to consider yourself a furry. And the furries are just people that it's more like people that are in the community of people that are interested in anthropomorphic animals, which are those two-legged, walking humanoid animals kind of thing. And it's just people that are in the community. Some people are not in the community. They're just I don't like the furry fandom. I hate fandoms. They ruin everything for me. But I still like, Roger Rabbit movie. It's really good. That kind of thing. So
what criteria do you think one would have to adhere to be a furry, to consider themselves a furry, you know?
It's just having that interest in those kind of characters and enough to be like, this is something would say I'm a part of. This is something that I commonly relate to with these other people. Like, I'm actually a lot different probably than most people because I don't have a fursuit. I don't draw. I can't draw. The fursuit's what got me in. I think that's what's like cool, and I eventually want to get one. But yeah, I don't draw or do anything like that. I'm only just talk to people and I look at the drawings and stuff. I think it's cool. I just follow a bunch of furries on Twitter and look at their stuff.
And you touched on it earlier, so do you not have to be a furry by, calling yourself by a different name, having that persona of, who you would be within that fursuit? It doesn't sound like to consider yourself a furry that you need to go to that extent, like having that suit on him.
You don't have to, if you're talking about like making a character, having a persona thing, like most people do that because it's kind of like it's like a creative outlet in general. So that's like, people like doing that. It's kind of what brings people in, but at the same time, like you don't really have to. There's some people that don't, but most people do, but technically don't have to.
And I think you kind of touched on this, but you specifically, what got you interested in being a furry?
Think about this. How I'm going to say this, because how I found this out is it's kind of weird, but it was kind of like sports mascots. Kind of always had like some weird, not like some interest on it. I thought that was interesting, kind of thing. It's hard to say my own thoughts, but I basically found it through a YouTube video, and I just kept watching other videos, and I just kept looking online. You just find stuff. That's when you talk to, you're going to find most people say like that. They just find one thing that leads them to the next, and they just go into it. And it's either like you find out about, I think a lot of people, you spend enough time on the internet, you find out about whatever these kinds of things are, like furries, the brony thing, if that's still a thing. I don't know if that's still a thing. Like, whatever. I don't know what other, like, Undertale fandom, and then you decide, like, okay, am I a part of that or not? Subconsciously, you make that decision at some point. So
I mean, for you, if it was the fursuit that kind of drew you in, what about a fursuit appeals to you? Is it having that kind of anonymity of being in a suit that no one knows Dan, they now know, this new character?
I think for me it was kind of it's the nature of, it's a performative nature. It's like playing a role, playing a character. I guess I wouldn't even say it's like, I know, because I know a lot of people in the furry fandom are like super introverted, and I'm not like that. I'm actually like very animated in real life. I'm very extrovert. I'm fine being the center of attention. I like doing that sometimes when I talk to people. But even then, it's like, I think it's kind of a performative thing. I never did theater or anything growing up, but I don't know. I think maybe if I did, I would have been good at that. It maybe would have been a big passion for me, but...
No, I think that's really interesting. And to your point, my thought process would be, maybe stereotypically, it would be somebody more likely to be in public as themselves, very shy, very not outgoing, but when they're in that suit and they're able to hide their, I don't know if I should say human form, then they can feel more relaxed and they feel like they can be somebody different. So that's interesting.
You're actually right about that. That is how most people view fursuits. From my experience and from the people I've talked to, you'll see most furries are, in general, very reserved people. That's why I say I'm kind of an outlier when it comes to furries, in terms of like I don't draw, I'm not introverted, this other stuff maybe we'll find out later. But two things like that, like I'm not like most people, I'd say. Do
furries think they are animals?
That is something different. That's called otherkin online. I think I'm gonna be straight here. I think that's just like super weird. I think if you think you're not a human, you like. I don't want to. All right, I'm not going to say anything about that. But that's not being a furry. That's
okay.
That's something completely different.
Gotcha.
And
do you think there's a mix potentially between the two? Like, if there's somebody that's otherkin that believes they're an animal, are they also buying a fursuit and then kind of mixing into that group?
I mean, you could say it's a squares, rectangles thing like that. Yeah. I don't know enough about like otherkin people. They consider themselves something like different from the fandom. They're like, we're on another level. These people just like they just like doing it for this, but this is actually who I am. Like it's like they're taking it way more seriously.
Okay.
So they tend to stick together into something different.
Gotcha. What other kind of people are involved in the fandom?
Kind of people. I'll give the generic answer that kind of everyone gives, because I think it's still kind of true, and that's it's kind of everyone. I mean, I've seen any kinds of people really be furries. I've met so many different kinds of people, so many different people that believe different things, have come from different places. Like, so it's a big mix of people. But in general, if I'm going to generalize, I would say it's the more, it's like the more introverted, people of the world, people that were not like the popular kids probably growing up, and a lot of the more quiet people, I'd say. If you needed me to generalize, that's what I'd say.
No, well, I mean, generalize or get as specific as you want. Who's the oldest furry that you've ever met? Do you know?
Okay, so if we're getting into the age, because I do know a decent bit about this, most furries are actually in the age of like 18 to 30. That is the most common age group, but there are a lot of people who are much older who have been in the furry fandom for like a long time. The oldest guy, I don't know his exact age, but look him up on YouTube. It's like Tilt Longtail. He's actually pretty cool, very interesting to listen to, and I think he's a much older guy. I don't know how old he is, but he's probably the oldest person I've heard of that is a furry.
And that leads me to an interesting thought. So, do you know, or do you think that being a furry, that concept has existed before the internet kind of popularized this niche group?
I mean, I think so, but this is getting more into the history of it. Yeah, probably. I'd say probably, but it gave rose to it as a community instead of, because I guess you can more or less say like the people that were furries, probably. I mean, the people that were furries in like whatever the 70s, like they were probably the people making like animated movies and stuff. It was a more niche group of people that were afforded these kinds of opportunities to do this stuff. Like they were the sports mascots or the people that made the animal cartoons or whatever. And there were probably people like that. It was just more scattered and wasn't grouped into like one specific group. It was just, it was an interest people probably had, and then there was an interest probably a lot of people that maybe had it and they just didn't know, they didn't have anywhere to go to express it.
Fair enough. All right, are there rules or guidelines to being a furry? Are there certain things where you're crossing the line? Don't do that.
Don't have sex with animals is probably like the number one rule of the furry fandom.
I didn't even think about that, yeah.
I didn't think about that because that's what some people think the furry fandom is, and it's funny because that is the thing people clamp down definitely the hardest on.
Huh.
And I mean, rightfully so. It's just like it should be illegal. I don't know why it's not illegal everywhere in the U.S., but yeah, I guess that's the number one rule. There's not really many like rules in the furry fandom. It's very hard to get like excommunicated from the furry fandom, but there are people that were. I mean, it's kind of just like it's not linear. It's just some people are just really annoying and loudmouthed enough. I guess like everyone will dislike you.
Exactly. Into the next question: is being a furry a sexual fetish?
So, my opinions on this have changed a lot. When you first come about it, you think like, oh yeah, it is. Then you're kind of in it. And you're like, oh no, it's not. It's all this stuff. And now I found out that like a lot of the people that it's not a fetish, but there's a lot of furry porn out there. Like everyone knows that. Like I think anyone who uses the internet knows that. And at this point, I mean, I've even made like tweets about it and stuff. Like people get like there's a lot of people. And there's a size 500 tweets that was like ridiculing people for being like, whoa, why do you think the furry fandom like can't be wholly safe for work? And it's like, I don't like furry porn at all. It's just like it's not what I came for. I don't like it at all. I'm like, I don't care whatever people do. If you want to coom to it, it's fine. Like, but I don't know. There's 18 plus. There are 18 plus furry conventions. This is what annoys me because there's a bunch of the discourse where it's like, how much sexual stuff should be allowed at furry conventions? And in my opinion, I'm like, there's literally 18 plus conventions. There's nothing wrong with having a furry convention that doesn't allow any of that. And then even then, people are going to go and have sex in their rooms because it's their own private rooms. Like, so whatever.
Right.
But no, it's not a fetish. It's just a lot of furry porn.
Yeah, and you know what, and just for our listeners and for for my brothers as part of the conversation later, there's a ton of worse things, I guess, out there to have a sexual fantasy about. And again,
there's definitely nothing wrong with doing that if you want to.
Right.
It's easy. It's easy for some people to catch flack on me for this, but like, I'm not against people cooming or whatever, like jerking off to stuff. It's just
I've never heard that said that way, it just keeps making me laugh. Sorry, keep going.
Sorry. Just because I don't like this, and I'm like, oh, I don't like how you do that character. Like, I don't. At the end of the day, that doesn't actually matter much. It doesn't affect me.
Yeah, I get what you mean. But again, there is that hard line of like, as long as you're not getting into actual real animal kind of fantasies, because that's obviously wrong. Let's talk about the fursuits specifically, because if that was a huge draw for you, I'm interested. I know they're expensive. I don't know how expensive. Also comfortable. Like, have you ever tried one on? Are they comfortable?
I've never worn one, sadly. Or I should say sadly for me, because I do want to.
Yeah.
And I actually have a good answer for this. This is an answer I'm not going to say I like prep, but I've thought about this a lot, because I've seen people, everyone throws out the $2,000. It's like, people are like, oh, $2,000? That's it. Like, that's the number for fursuits, when it's not. That is not the right number. That is, and this is from, because I've looked at this, I'm interested in buying them. It varies. There are ones that are expensive, as I think 17,000 was the most expensive one ever sold, like, which is ridiculous. Like, yeah, I get it. Then we're getting into how much you value something. I'm not gonna ever spend that much money on something like that. But, and that's not to say whatever thing isn't worth that much. But if you want a nice full suit, so that means the head thing. If you've ever seen one where they're like fully like the full animal thing, from a very well known fursuit maker, because there are like a lot of fursuit makers. Some are like people just starting out, some are like people that are very, very experienced. If you want one that's like very reputable, very experienced, a full suit, everything, it will probably cost around $2,000. Yes, that is the fair assessment there. But you can get less than just that. You can get there's layers of it being less fursuit until you get down to the partial, which is like kind of the least. Or you can actually just get a head on its own, which is like $300. And then you get down to, which the partial is kind of the thing I want. That can cost you, that only costs a couple $100, up to $1,000, depending on how good the maker is. And that's kind of just like head, tail, paws, and you can wear long clothing to kind of get that full effect. But so the gist of it more or less is it's a range. It can cost, the most expensive one I think I've heard about was like $17,000. If you have that much money to spend on something like that, yeah.
Wow.
But,
so you used the term fursona earlier, which I thought was interesting. Is that that's not describing the suit itself though, right? It's not necessarily would you call it the character? Like, how do you select that fursuit, what it looks like?
all right, so yeah, the persona it's a furry persona. It's kind of one of those words I hate, because it's like very, very corny, I think. But I mean, what else are you gonna say? Yeah, that's what it is. And a lot of people say a fursona is like the furry version of you. That's kind of the common definition of it. But it doesn't have to be like you. It can, you can make a character like whatever, an OC of anything, and people still use the word fursona to describe it. So it's a very loose definition. And yeah, that like the characters people make, what you do is you get a reference sheet, which is basically like if you know in video games, it's like a T-pose. It's kind of a T-pose of your character. So you get all the different sides and angles of everything, and then they see, okay, this is how the character's going to look, and then they make it.
So it's almost like a customizable website that you go to?
So there might be websites for it, but you're probably going to end up with something a little bit generic, in my opinion. What you can do is, the furry fandom is amazing, because there's a lot of creative people that just they make their own characters. So it's kind of crazy what people come up with. So my character, because again I was uncreative, I used the base for it, and then I just colored it in, and people kind of get the gist of that too. So yeah, you create your own character, you can like, if you find someone that's an artist, you can shoot them a message and like kind of like pay them and hire them to help you make something as well. Or you can just get like a friend to help you if you know someone nice that can help you. But I mean, it's up to you. It's blank canvas. It's all, you get to create whatever you want.
Comfortable though. I mean, so I know you haven't tried one on, but you know enough about them. They are comfortable? They don't get too hot?
So fursuits are not comfortable now. That's not the point of wearing them. Only in certain conditions. But yes, fursuits they're very hot. I could tell you two specific things. Specific insight, which is breathability. It differs based off fursuit. So there are more realistic style fursuits where the eye holes are just these little like slits, and then they have like plastic, or not plastic, but like a material thing and it looks amazing. It looks very realistic, but you can't see anything out of them. It's really hard to see, and you can't breathe out of them either. But they look amazing. And then you have the more cartoony style ones, where if you've ever seen most fursuits, which this is how they differ from like a mascot suit. Most mascot suits, you see out of like the mouth or something like weird. Fursuits, you actually do see out of the eyes, the way it's like a little mesh thing. Eyes are really big, and sometimes you see characters with a big, or makers that have like a big mouth, and if you see that, then it's a lot more breathable, and it is less hot, but it's always hot. And obviously, general thumb, the more you're wearing, like fur-wise, the more hot it is. So if you see full suit, like that's going to be brutal. Like, it's going to be the most hot. But if you're wearing just a partial, I mean, you're pretty much just wearing pants and a sweatshirt or like long sleeves or whatever, and it's not terrible. It's just your head. It's like you're wearing something.
So if they're not super comfortable, they're hard to breathe out of and see. What situations, what scenarios are you wearing the suit? Is it something that a goal is to be able to wear it generally in public and that be publicly accepted? Is that kind of a goal for furries, or is it just conventions and then at home?
No one wants to go around wearing a fursuit all the time, because not only is it not comfortable to wear, it's a lot of maintenance. So like after you wear it, I mean, you're gonna stink and you're gonna smell it. It's not gonna smell too good. You really gotta gotta wash it down after, spray it a little bit. So a lot of people say, especially if you more stuff, the more maintenance you have to do. Some people I've heard say are like, it's like owning a pet. You gotta spray it down and brush it and all this other stuff. That's another reason why I don't want a full suit. I don't want to spend that much time doing maintenance. I just want partial. It's a little easier. But no, people don't want to do that. They just want to wear it, mainly at conventions or other group gatherings or meetups, or just, kind of whenever they feel like when I get a fursuit, the first thing I'm going to do is just not, when my friends are all getting together, I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to show up wearing it and see their reaction, because I think that would be funny. But yeah, some people wear them out in like public and stuff, and that's like public suiting. You're kind of like acting as your character, and you're just meeting people, and that's kind of just like you're going around, you're just trying to make people's day. It's a little bit of fun. That's kind of the best way of putting it. It's very hard to describe. Why someone would do that. If you're not kind of already getting it, or if you've never seen it before, I understand. But
Kind of is a good segue to my next question, and by no means do I mean to offend, but the question of what do you think furries can do to improve their public reputation?
So yeah, most of whatever like bullying online, whatever, I don't really care about that. It's just like I'm used to a lot of offensive jokes and humor, so it's kind of hard to offend me. So okay, something the furries can do to improve their reputation: probably stop making so many jokes about porn. Literally all the time, people make so many porn references, and just it's kind of annoying. I think, especially on Twitter, it's really and a lot of other people just go in or not just other people, but another thing is doing weird role play to online, just to random people too. There was also this joke where you probably heard about that, where they went and they just commented a bunch of horny stuff on the Tony the Tiger account. They're like, guys, this is so funny. Yeah, okay, that was funny, but if you check the account, people are still doing that. It's not even a joke anymore. You're just publicly talking about how you have a fetish for him. It's just weird.
So in reverse, what do you think folks that are non-furries can do to just better support, people like you, people like, furries and fursuits?
Okay, so we're doing fine. We don't need support. Furries are not an oppressed class of people. For one, I just don't like when people speak that way, because
sure,
it's really not that bad. But the most anyone can do is just find out what it's about and not make a lazy joke, I guess, because it doesn't even offend anyone. Just kind of you just look stupid, in my opinion. But yeah, best you can do is just really know what it is. But I'm never gonna be upset by someone or just thinking that it's weird, or making a snap judgment that it's weird, because it is. That's reasonable to think that.
All right, I got one last question for you. What does YIF mean? I actually genuinely have no idea.
How do you not? It's probably good that you don't know what that means. But listen, how did you even? I first want to ask you before I tell you. How did you find out? Where did you first read about that, or how did you find out about that?
So when I type in furry on Reddit, a lot of different subreddits come up, and one of them is a lot of them are YIF stuff.
And they probably have more subs than like the normal furry stuff.
Yeah, they might. I'm assuming it means masturbate, but I don't know.
That's not a bad guess. It just means porn. It just means
porn.
Like, yeah, because it's only in the context of like, I don't know. I guess some people were like, yeah, we're gonna go YIF.
Well, there you go. We've all learned something. Thank you again for being on, and my brothers and I are after this right now about to have a conversation about this conversation. So if you do end up listening, don't be a stranger. Awesome, man. Take it easy.
All right. Yeah. See ya.
So yeah, that was my interview with Dan, and super awesome guy that was willing to have a conversation. So what do you think?
I'll speak for myself, but I fully support furries. Like, I know they get a bad rep especially on the internet, mainly out of ignorance. People don't understand, but I think it's just people being themselves.
Yeah. So, first of all, I want to. I agree. Largely, I agree. First of all, Dan was super astute. I noticed he was very thoughtful. There were a couple things that I wrote down that actually really surprised me in his answer. Things like he said he was very stern with you, Landen. Like, furries are not an oppressed group, and I was like,
yeah,
whoa, that's so interesting.
Great point.
Because it's so interesting to hear the perspective, right from the horse's mouth. No pun intended.
Right. Yeah. No. As soon as he made that point, I was like, yeah. Why am I thinking of this group as this marginalized, oppressed? Jesus Christ.
I'm glad you actually got it, though. Landen just bulleted through it.
Yeah, I wasn't watching your video, so I just kind of kept rolling with that. But I got it. That's good.
There was a lot that I wrote down, but one of the things that I'm really actually curious, and I don't know if we're going to get an answer, but he said, I wrote down 4 times. He said this 4 times with no clarification. He said, I can't draw. And he was saying that in reference to most people that are furries can draw. So is he saying there's a general artistic vibe with this group of people?
That's what. So when he was talking, and I guess I should clarify, this is me speaking from my own knowledge, not based on any research I've done. But the porn he's talking about isn't usually fursuit porn. It's animated stuff. It's drawings. It's a big portion of the furry fan base is
hentai.
Creative, is not even just porn, but just drawings is that's why Lieutenant Hops from Zootopia is such a big furry thing, because it's a cute animated animal.
And that was an interesting aspect to this interview, to hear that Dan was not interested in that kind of stuff as someone that proclaims to be a furry. One, that he wasn't interested in the sexual side of things, and he doesn't consider it to be a fetish, even though his description of the community was very porn heavy. But two is also just the fact that he doesn't have a suit, because I was attributing so much of that community to be you have to have a suit to be a furry, when he doesn't have a suit. And surprise, actually, I wasn't going to bring it up till later. I actually had a second interview with a different furry. And this individual actually told me that they don't have a suit and they don't want to have a suit. So that tells me that this community is very diverse in the fact that I think the core idea of that becoming a part of your identity is to have that quote unquote fursona. It's I adhere to this
who do you want to
alter ego animated character that is me,
which can literally be anything, and it's usually in the fantasy type world, but you could literally walk in there dressed as you are and be like, I'm a part of this mental fursona group.
I'm a furry, but it's in a way it's like cosplay, but with these characters that are animals, and that's the separation from so it's almost an extension of cosplay in my mind.
Yeah. I also, so now that we're on the topic of fursonas, that's something that 100% makes sense to me, is having this alter ego version of yourself that's different. I take it from my own experience. Mason is a very introverted, not outgoing, doesn't really want to talk to people type person. And if I could put on a mask and a costume and go out in public and play a character of who I want to be, that would be so much fun for me. And I totally understand it. I kind of attribute it to back when I was in bands playing on stage. I can be whoever I want to be. I can dress how I want to be and give off this persona of who I am. But it's just a character, even if it has some base in reality of who I actually am or who I want to be. It's just a character I'm playing, and it's so much fun to get lost in that.
But then the difference between, so like, to me, Mason, what you just said to me is cosplay. So I'm trying to bridge the gap specifically into this lane that we know as furries, where it's animalistic. He mentioned multiple times, he used the term animals quite a bit. He even said rule number 1 is don't have sex with animals. So the community even knows that that's like their fursona is animal based.
Yeah,
and that's
right,
what separates it from a cosplay.
It's a fantasized version of animals, not
it's not real.
So
animals.
yeah,
Right.
so they're not encouraging like, and even with pretending like you actually are an animal is a separate thing from being a furry. So thinking that I am a cat and having potential sexual fantasy with real animals, that's like two other completely separate things, which I thought was fascinating.
Well, and also, I don't know how much our listeners know about furries on the internet, but if you look at most of their staple $2,000 suits, they're so, they're not realistic looking. They're very over animated and they look like cartoons. And I think that, again, stems to something I didn't realize, where it's less about the suits and more about the creative, artistic nature of these characters.
For sure.
So it has nothing to do with actual real animals. It's just this artistic representation.
So Dan seems like by the way, super stand-up guy, very I think he really is in this for the creative, he can be this fursona of himself. I think that's awesome. I completely support it. My biggest question is, why not go do cosplay when you can do the exact same thing from a creative perspective? Why choose this venue in an animal perspective when it is highly looked on as a sexual fetish thing? Whether you are or not is irrelevant. Most people look at furries and say it's a sex thing. Why do you want to be associated with that when you can pull the creative aspects of anything in a cosplay world? That's what I'm struggling with.
To me, cosplay is you're dressing up as someone else. You're dressing up as an anime character. You're dressing up as a video game character. But being a furry is you're dressing up as yourself. You're dressing up as something very personal to you. I was thinking about this while I was listening to the video. To me, it's almost similar to creating a character in a video game. You create that character based on yourself with maybe some attributes that you would like to see in yourself more, just like your ideal person. I was even thinking specifically D&D characters, like creating a character that's part of you, or even Skyrim. I was picturing in Skyrim, I just want to go build a Daedric suit of armor and then just go show it off to the world and be me in this cool character that I created with this awesome Daedric suit. And that's kind of what it seems like to me. But it's still personal to me.
That makes a lot of sense. Honestly, I didn't even think of that perspective at all, Mason.
Mason, I'm curious to your point. So you kind of enter this community knowing that it's highly sexualized. And it's just a shift from our upbringing. But are you saying the mindset really is, why are we kink shaming? Why are we so invested in the sex portion of this when just if people are into that, allow that lane, and if people aren't into that, allow them to live in their lane? Or is it because he still kind of came at it as because he said stop fantasizing with the furry porn. So he even is there's a side of this where it's gross. What are your thoughts? Is it more of just accept everybody no matter what, and if that happens to just be have massive orgies, then that's part of their persona, or is it?
I wouldn't be surprised. If
I'm a part of this, but I reject part of this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's different sub communities within the furry community that are some
Mm.
people are into just having their fursuit. There's nothing sexual about it. And then you got some people that are into like heavily into the porn, and then some people are heavily into going to the furry groups and like actually getting hotel rooms and acting it out for real. But I think it seems to me like it's generally agreed, as long as you're not hurting someone, who cares what you do? Just don't
Be
have
nice.
sex with real animals.
Yeah. Which was amazing that I hadn't even thought of that. And so I was really happy that he pointed that out. But yeah, I think I changed my opinion a lot after that conversation, because to your point, Clace, beforehand I was like, it's so, I mean, I still don't get it, and I still kind of think it's weird, but it's to me it's less like a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if even if you're a furry and you're taking it as a sexual aspect, like to me that's less of a deal to me, like a big deal, than from before this conversation if I would have heard that.
I also, so by the way, just in the similar lane, I was also critiquing Landen's interview skills throughout. And first of all, Dan knew that you were not important enough because he couldn't bother himself to make his bed.
That was his roommate's bed behind him, because before we started, he turned around and said, "Oh man, like I just need to make sure this doesn't look like absolute crap."
That's
and
funny.
I think he shuffled a couple things around, but
that is funny.
I made it known that this was low key. This was not high pressure.
Good, as you should have.
Yeah, and he was even like tiptoeing around some of the porn stuff, and I was like, dude, just go all in. Like, we're fine.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to give a quick shout out, of course, to Dan once again, but then also to Inferno. This individual went by Inferno, and they were the first person to reach out about the interview. Our interview was just a little slower and wasn't as meaty with the conversation, but they had some really good points about when I brought up the question of how can we support you, they said that's not the right word, as well as Dan said. They said coexist makes more sense. Like
they're so
how can you guys coexist with us, because it's not that big of a deal. But they also said
I was just on that point. I was just gonna say that is. So, like, I admire that so much for both of these individuals, and honestly, I'll extend that to the community, because now, like, we're batting 100%. That both of them can be aware enough to say, look, this isn't like a social justice thing,
right?
Like, we're not oppressed. We're not like there's bigger and more important things we need to focus on as a country, as a society. But like, here's how you can exactly like coexist with us. To me, that's so thoughtful.
Yeah, which it means they're not looking for attention. They're just existing on their own.
Just let us be, and how can you not oppress us? Or like, how can you not lean in too hard?
To be honest, like there's that aspect, but there's also the aspect of our own mindset. Like the fact that I had the mindset of, because I'm not like you, you must be in this situation that's, you know, it was like putting this image that didn't exist onto them that doesn't exist. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where I view myself as almost being higher because I'm not within this. So like, how can I do to help you as the white man, you know? Yeah.
But good on them.
White man.
Good on them for not like leaning into the question and just giving an answer to give an answer. Like being honest, be like, we're fine. Like, exactly. No.
You can join our political committee every Tuesday.
One thing I really liked, I don't know why, but I am pretty knowledgeable about the furry community for some reason. I think out of curiosity. But one thing I had never considered that he said that really had me thinking was the maintenance that you have to do on your suit, which makes sense. I had never considered that. Yeah, you got to take care of that afterwards, and it's probably a huge pain.
A beast.
He said having the suit is almost like having a pet.
Yeah.
You have to wash and take care of it, which was very
also
interesting.
Those heads
and
are
then think
big
about
to like even just to store that, and think of somebody with just like a one-room apartment. You got to try to figure out where you keep your fursuit.
It's crazy. And then think like how frequently are they going out? I'll bet some of these people go out every weekend. They go to conventions or parties or whatever every weekend.
And that was exactly what I was trying to figure out. Like, is it a goal of the community for that to be more commonplace? You know, over time, are we just in public? Am I going to be shopping at the grocery store and see somebody in a suit? Like,
Permanent Halloween.
Is that a goal? And exactly, Mason, he said, like, that's not really our goal. It's not really something that we want to do publicly, but it's more conventions and just kind of with friends.
It's them existing in their own community. They're not trying to like, this is my lifestyle. It's like, this is what I do for fun with my friends.
Yeah.
It's like D&D. You don't have
it.
people playing D&D out in Walmart. Like,
that'd be fun.
We should do it for it, but
we're gonna have a battle.
Breaking ground. Yeah.
So before we get into our next segment, I would like us to real quick just jump over to our sponsor for today's episode.
Our
sponsor!
Woo!
Coming soon to own on video and DVD.
This is DVD. And this is what happens when you watch DVD. It's a movie on a disc the size of a CD. The picture is twice as sharp as VHS. The sound is infinitely clearer. It looks and sounds like you're at the movies, but you can experience it at home. Not to mention, you can watch it in widescreen, listen to audio commentary, choose from features like director's notes, behind-the-scenes footage, trailers, and more. Watch a movie right on your computer. DVD. See how good a movie at home can be. With over 3,000 titles to choose from, make sure you see your next movie on DVD.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, that was such a fever dream. I hated it. but
Oh
I
my
loved
god,
it.
constant sound effects. Chris, was that a real commercial?
Yeah, that was a real commercial. I
Oh
only
my
doctored it
gosh.
slightly. But that was a real DVD commercial. So make sure next movie you get, go to the
Please,
DVDs.
I'm anxious now. Like, I have stress. Like, it kind of stressed me out.
Do we need to put like a trigger warning before the sponsor?
I was
great.
laughing. I'm glad you guys found it as funny as I did, because I all right.
I
Thanks,
love that.
thanks to our sponsor.
That's top. That's one of the top sponsors in my book. Thank you for DVDs. Go watch them.
So, guys, that was the Furry episode. I hope you enjoyed.
I did. I actually learned more than I thought I would. Kind of solidified that I'm okay with this community, and I hope that they continue doing what they want and just living their lives the way they want to without bothering anyone.
And you know what? We will coexist with you. That's our commitment to the furry community.
This
How about we
suddenly got
spin this
so
wheel?
wholesome. I love it. Let's spin the wheel. We're going to figure out what we got going on for next week. So that is the end of yet another episode of I'm Telling Mom. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, YouTube, Discord, and of course all podcasting platforms everywhere. Go get yourself some exclusive ITM merch at itmmerch.com.
New
Guys, we
t-shirt
appreciate you
designs.
listening. New t-shirt designs. It's a big deal, especially if you screamo
Big
death
deal.
metal rah rah. It's awesome.
deal.
Perfect for Granny. Guys, we appreciate you listening to our nonsense. Please look forward to and we'll see you next time when we discuss.
Drunk episode with drinking games.
Oh, no.
I didn't even mean to slur at the end there. That was perfect.
Drunk episode. All right, we need to set ground rules ahead of next week's episode. Is it expected that we come to the episode already intoxicated, or do we build throughout the episode?
Fuck.
We'll figure it out. Find out next week.
Tune in next week. Oh!